The cost of living crisis, let's talk about it. You're seeing a lot of YouTube videos of people complaining about the cost of living crisis. What does it even mean? To me, it means that incomes are not keeping up with expenses. So expenses keep rising, or the cost on your expenses keep rising, but the wages don't actually keep up. So that's really generally what it means. And a lot of these factors are outside of our control. Like, we can't control inflation. And inflation is when the cost of goods and services go up exponentially and they continue to rise. And so therefore everything ends up costing so much more. And these things again are without our control. Like, we can't control inflation. We can't control housing prices. And housing prices go up because as the inflation was going up, the Fed came in and started to raise interest rates. And that in turn had an effect on housing prices because people kept staying in their home, and then therefore things work around supply and demand, and then there was less supply of housing, and so therefore housing prices kept going up rapidly. And as housing prices went up rapidly, not everybody made out, even though you have a home, therefore it means that now your house is worth more, so your taxes are going to go up. And so the service end of the piece, your taxes are going to go up, your property taxes, the insurance you pay on the house is going to go up, the utilities are going to go up because now cost of servicing, maybe fuel and energy pricing has gone up because with supply chain disruptions that happened during COVID, they couldn't get, let's say, parts weren't being delivered to manufacturers on cars, so then the cost of cars went up exponentially. Even old cars cost more than they went up in value because people couldn't replace their cars because manufacturers couldn't even build the cars fast enough to keep up with the demand. And so old car prices went through a period where they were rising rapidly because of the supply chain disruptions. They couldn't get the parts from areas around the world that they needed. So let's say China wasn't delivering things on freight, and then therefore it wasn't getting to where it needed to go. So that in turn was a supply chain disruption. And then the supply chain disruption meant that things weren't getting to the markets as quickly. So then the demand and supply disruptions happened there as well in our grocery stores. So then food pricing ended up going up. And as food pricing went up, so the cost of everything that you did buy started to rise exponentially. Again, these are beyond our control. And then healthcare started going up because what ends up happening is, I don't think people realize, maybe some do, but the overall process for research and development to get a drug through the FDA cost, I think on average, $1 billion just to get a drug through the manufacturing piece. And so then therefore you have all the big pharma picking up the little smaller companies that were somewhere along the lines and getting it for pennies on the dollar, and then therefore having to recoup some of the money that they just spent. And so therefore the cost of the healthcare and the drugs, which is not as regulated as much as it should be, went up exponentially. So then people are paying more for their drugs. And then the cost, we ended up having to pay more for everybody. Initially was getting money from the government. People were getting more money in their paychecks initially at first because people had to pay more because they couldn't find the people for the jobs. So originally people were probably getting paid a bit more in the beginning, and wages were keeping up initially, but then over time they were not. But that therefore did affect the price that we ended up paying people to even deliver things to the grocery stores and the supermarket, and your healthcare providers and the doctors and the lawyers. Everybody ended up charging more because their bills went up, real estate went up, all the pricing. So therefore those costs are passed on to the consumer. So we talked about all the things that are going up and you can't control them. And then the Fed raising the interest rates, of course, affected rent pricing as well, because now if people aren't moving, the price of rents go up exponentially. And so now this all sounds like doom and gloom. So what can you do? These things may be beyond your control, But what you have in your control are things like how you budget, how you spend, the kind of jobs you take, the skills you obtain, and maybe it does mean that you have to do a side hustle and you have to work a little bit harder in the short term. And I know people don't want to hear that, but when I was struggling and broke, and even now where I think about it, may mean me working a little bit longer because, yeah, my insurance on my properties have gone up. My taxes have gone up. While on paper, it may mean that our property values have gone up. When you're not selling things, it does mean that the cost for those things going up. So therefore, it may mean I need more money to live on when I am retired. And so therefore, it may mean working a bit longer for me. So that's one of the things that I could do. And in other cases that I could do, I could end up working extra, picking up a second job, creating a YouTube channel if this ended up bringing income for me in retirement, doing a topic that I love. If it ends up meaning maybe in the future that will supplement a little bit of my retirement. Unclear. But all in all these things so affect the cost of living and our spending habits, our budgets, how we manage our debt, how we take on debt, because obviously when interest rates rise, therefore, if you have debt, it means you're going to be paying more to continue to hold that debt. So another thing you could do is to try to pay off your debt as quick as possible and to really be careful about watching your needs versus your wants. And maybe it may mean cutting down some of your wants because you need to pay off debt because it's a higher interest rate and it's costing you a lot more. And then the other things you could do is work on your career and pick up some skills so that you could get a raise or move roles within a company or even change positions to get a job that gives you more money. These are some of the things that we could do. They don't sound as promising as, if inflation stops going up and costs just on expenses start evening out. And it seems like we're at that point now. We're in May, and I think this may be the first year where property taxes may not rise as much as they did years prior. And my hope is that that happens and that rents seem to be coming down a little bit more, that people having a little bit more inventory to choose from. Interest rates are starting to drop now. And that may mean that there may end up being a little bit more inventory as time, because people want to continue to hold on to the homes that they have if they have the interest rate that they had when they had their loan was so low. They don't want to let go of their property because even if they were to buy something on the same property value and taking out a $100,000 loan at 6% versus 3%, it's still double the amount that you're going to end up paying in the on the interest. So therefore, if interest rates continue to drop, it may mean that supply inventory goes up a little bit, and that will keep prices in line a little bit as people go down. And then there may be a little bit more inventory, which will really be helpful to everyone, including those who own homes, because on paper, it may be great that your property value is going up, but you can't live on the paper value of your home. And so therefore, having property taxes not rise, having insurances and maintenance on the property and the cost to just redo a roof or a kitchen not go up exponentially would be super helpful in keeping homeowner costs down. Because I think they say that you have to keep a certain percentage of the home price value, just a year. I think it's like 1% of the home value just for maintenance costs. Obviously, as the home rises, that means those maintenance costs are going to be going up too. Anyway, just some ideas that crossing through my mind when I think of the cost of living crisis. It does sound doom and gloom at times when you think about it, but there is definitely things between our control of budgeting, managing debt, working on our careers and our incomes, and potentially even getting side jobs and being just more cost-conscious consumers on our spending. Anyway, I hope this helping some light to the cost of living crisis and some of my thoughts on it. And hope everyone, if you found any value or liked anything about this video, you hit like and you consider subscribing. This channel is really about personal finance and just also documenting my journey to retirement. So it is partly a retirement channel as well, because there is going to be content on here related to my own retirement. Anyway, hope everyone is doing well, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.